Hey YouTube, it's the Pied Piper.
Have you ever felt?
This video
Are
is
you
not going to be very
listening?
long. I'm trying very hard to make videos that are reasonable lengths. Excuse me if I start, excuse me for adjusting myself. Sorry, get a little handsy. So I'm trying out a new foundation right now, so if my face looks horrible or my makeup looks bad, I'm sorry. My roots are done, so now my hair is, all one color, so yay. Before I get started in this episode, I was at Walmart the other night because, as everybody who knows me knows, I really love gummy bears. Like, they're my favorite candy. I love gummy bears to death. And so I was at the store and I was thinking, oh my gosh, these gummy bears are $1. What a steal. What a bargain. So I got them and I got home, and I don't know why I didn't realize this. It makes perfect sense now that I think about it, but I'm so dumb because I get home and I'm excited because one of my favorite things is the clear gummy bear, or like the white, the clear gummy bear with chocolate covered. Usually you get those at like a Sweet Factory or something like that in the mall. But I ended up getting this pack of gummy bears, and sorry if I'm like squinting. The light that I have rigged up is super bright. It's killing me. Anyway, I got these gummy bears, and they are all red and green. Like, come on, Haribo, or however you say it. Red and green only. No clear ones? I mean, isn't a clear one? That's kind of a Christmas color, right? Like red, white, green. Come on. So I'm really upset because I feel like I was robbed. This video is going to be a little bit different because this is more of like the Pied Life. Probably, what is this, episode 3 of the Pied Life? But what this is going to be basically about some of these. They're kind of conspiracy theories, but they're my personal things that I think are just interesting, or like some of my personal outlooks on things. So if you're triggered easily, or you are, at all very sensitive, you might not like this video. And so I warn you in advance to like run the other way, because this is just going to be stupid stuff that I think, these are my own personal little conspiracy or beliefs, and they have nothing to do, and they don't discredit anybody else's beliefs. These are just mine specifically. So without further ado, let's get into some of my little conspiracy theories. Or not even conspiracy theories, they're just theories. So, one of my theories, and I'm looking in a book. I'm not just like looking down and avoiding the camera. Like, I'm really looking in a book. And sorry if I've been looking everywhere but the lens. I totally forgot to do that for a second. So, one of the things that people always ding me on is the fact, and sorry if I'm all out of frame, I'm trying to like see and make sure that I'm like in the frame, but if I'm not, sorry. It's been a long day. But one of the things that I really believe or think, and what I like to call, is a soulmate trait. And anytime I see a new couple that gets together, or somebody tells me about a guy that they like, or a girl that they like, or whomever, I always want to see that person, because I believe that certain people have these soulmate traits. And I call them soulmate traits. I don't know what you might call them, or if you even think is a thing. But I always think that when people are meant to be, something on their face is they resemble each other. Like, and not even just because they've been together for a long time. Like, something about them, their features, even if they're a interracial couple or whatever, they still resemble each other. So like, they'll have like the same smile lines, or even the same kind of mouth, or their noses will be similar. There's always going to be something in this general region that is similar. And so I call them soulmate traits. So when people are saying, like, when I see all of the boyfriend tags, because I know if you watch Love&Swirl, you'll see that sometimes we feature like the BWWM couples, and just black women with other brother couples and things like that. And all of those couples, I am the one who vets them first. Like, I watch all of them, I check, and have a whole criteria list before we even premiere like a couple, or we introduce a couple to everyone. So I watch millions and millions of people's couple videos, and I look for things like their soulmate traits. And so whenever somebody introduces somebody and they're like, "Oh, this is my boyfriend. This is the boyfriend tag," I always want to see if they have some soulmate traits. And if they don't, I'm like, "Oh, I don't even bother with them. They're not going to be together long." Here's the trippy thing: I've never been wrong. Never, not a one time have I been wrong. Even couples who are like, we don't look anything alike, they may be different races, whatever, they still have something in this region that is very similar, and those are their soulmate traits. I've never been wrong. So that's just something I think, and that's what I call it, a soulmate trait. And then another thing, my idea about race mixing. And I know a lot of these things kind of sound like they're about race, but they're really not. They just so happen to be like things that I believe. And I actually read one of an author that I really like is Mercedes Keys, and she actually mentioned something in one of her books, and it's not a nonfiction book or anything, but it's a book, it's a story, and she mentions like people needing to racially, mix. And I personally agree with that. I think that, you know how like there's all these diseases nowadays that like when we were younger, and I'm probably showing my age, but I'm not going to tell you how old I am. I'm just 30. 30. Anyway, so I am young. So, but there are people who, you hear all these new diseases, and you think, wow, when I was younger, there was never these diseases. And you think maybe they just, they've been researching more and they discovered these things. I don't think that's it at all. I think when people segregate themselves, and sorry if you hear stuff other places, but anyway, I think that when people segregate themselves, they kind of water down. They don't water down, but they too much have a too heavy of a concentration of one specific like set of genes, and so it's almost kind of like incest. Like how people make the joke like, oh, incest gives you like a kid with 6 fingers or 2 arms on one side of their body and then another arm over here. Weird things, 2 heads, and people make jokes like that. I kind of think that's what happens when people don't racially intermingle for too long. When they stay too much to themselves and they segregate themselves, they end up kind of like incest, and everybody's got these same, like too many of the same genes. And so you need to bring in somebody of a different culture to like mix it up and be able to create people who are not superior, but sort of, they're genetically, or maybe even like their immune systems even are a little bit more superior than other people who haven't mixed in a long time. So I think that's weird. And this is a really simplistic example and a really simplistic explanation. I will go deeper if you ask me, but for right now, that's one of the reasons why I really do believe in people are meant to racially intermingle, because they end up, with these weird diseases if you start to just, segregate yourselves off, and then you get so many different odd little chromosomal issues when you don't. And so I think that that's why you should mix. Not that everybody has to if you don't want to. I'm just saying it is a healthy thing to mix going forward. I'm just speeding through this. Here's a little thing that I think is kind of weird. I have always had, from when I was really young, this like prophetic dreams. And prophetic dreams are dreams that happen. They're real things that you dream about, and then they happen some other time in life. And I know people are going to be like, you're crazy. And maybe I am a little bit nutty, but this is something that I experienced. Example, when I was really young, I used to go to this daycare. Like I was really young, but this daycare was like, actually, when I first had this dream, I didn't even know this daycare existed. But I was like, the dream was I was in this place. I didn't know what it was, but it was fenced off, and I was on some astroturf. And then I was talking to some adult, but I couldn't really make out their facial features. It just was, I knew I was talking to an adult. And then I was staring across the field, or this little area, and there was like a little wooded off area. There was like astroturf, a little wood beam that kind of like squared in a red swing set. It was like a red wood swing set, and there was sawdust underneath the swings. And there was a kid who was swinging on one of the swings, and I look over, and the same time I look over in my dream, the kid hops on the swing, flips over, lands on his face on the sawdust, gets a sawdust chip stuck in his eye, and then like the dream, like all dreams kind of do, it jumps from time to time. But somehow, like a couple weeks later, the dream jumps and he has an eye patch on. And he's this blonde haired child, like he's kind of a towhead kid. He's really light features, pale skin, blonde hair, blue eyes. But that was who the dream was about. At first, I was like, oh, it's just a dream. I didn't even pay attention to it because I didn't even know this place existed. Then, um, like a few months later, I end up going to this daycare, and it looked similar to the dream, but I still wasn't putting everything together because there wasn't sawdust. There was like this playhouse, and there was sand, and then there was the red swing set, but there was no sawdust. So, but there was the astroturf area. So I just kind of blew it off because I was like, that doesn't make any sense. And I just didn't really put too much weight in it because it just, in my mind, I didn't have anything to equate it to. So I don't even think about it. And then, like, as time goes on, out of nowhere, and this is probably maybe like a year later, out of nowhere, the daycare decides that they're going to replace all of the sand because kids are throwing sand and getting it in hair and stuff like that. They're going to replace the sand with sawdust. And I was thinking, that's weird. I didn't put it together. And then probably like a few more months later, this kid Gregory, who was one of the staff members' kids, I think he was like the owner's grandson. But anyway, he runs over to the swing set, jumps on the swing, and I'm talking to another staff member. And her and I are talking, and I don't even know what I was talking to her about. I've always been an old soul. Like I'm the one kid in daycare who's talking to an adult. But anyway, I'm talking to the staff member, and I look over, and it was kind of like in slow motion. This kid Gregory runs over, jumps on the swing, and it was like I could see it happening. And even though like I knew it was going to happen, I couldn't say anything because I'm thinking, what are the chances? It just seemed so weird. He runs over, hops on the swing, flips, does a little flip on the swing, lands in the sawdust, gets a sawdust chip stuck in his eye. And then a little while later, he comes back to daycare with an eye patch. I was floored. And I kept telling people, I knew that was going to happen. I knew that was going to happen. And people were like, yeah, right, you're whatever, you're weird. And they're like, if you knew it was going to happen, why couldn't you say anything? And I'm like, because it was so surreal at the time. You're witnessing something and you're putting all the pieces together, and it's like you're the only thing moving in slow motion while this thing is like happening, and your brain is just slowly putting it together. You can't even stop it from happening. So, but I've had like more dreams like that. Not all of my dreams are like that. Obviously, I still have the dumb dreams where I think I'm flying or anything other weird stuff, but that is like something that I've kind of always experienced. Another thing, and I'm going through these super fast. Oh, I have this trick, and it's not really a conspiracy theory so much as like a coping mechanism. But everybody knows I had a kid young, and so before, like, when you are a young, like, when you're a teenager and you have a child, and you become a teenage mom, you don't think of the pain that's going to come into play when you actually have to give birth to this baby. And I have had a pretty sad life. I mean, I'm just going to be honest. My life has been filled with a lot of pretty devastating things, especially my childhood. I just didn't really have one. Anyway, but I used to do this thing where I used to try to convince myself there's 24 hours in a day. So one day is 24 hours, and pain can only last for at the most for hopefully 24 hours. So when I was younger, I used to trick my mind into thinking this is only going to be 24 hours. This is one day I have to deal with this pain. So fast forward. I'm sorry, my nose is like running. Sorry, this is weird. Don't mind me. Anyway, so when I was, I'm pregnant. I'm like 16 years old and pregnant. I saw a video of a woman giving birth, and for some reason, I didn't realize how entailed birth was. And everybody used to say, oh, it's the beauty of childbirth. And I was like, there's nothing beautiful about childbirth. The baby afterwards is beautiful, but there is nothing beautiful. I've never been one of those women who was like, that's so beautiful. And like, ew, it's gross. Some people poop. It's gross. It's gross. So anyway, I was devastated. I saw this video and I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't want to do this. like I'm like being pregnant thinking, I don't want to have this baby. Like, it's going to be a 20-year-old walking around inside me because I don't want to have this baby. Like, I didn't want to deal with that pain. So what I told myself was, okay, I asked all these doctors and all of these people, like, how long can the pain last? And once I kind of got an idea of how long the pain could last, I kept telling myself, okay, this too shall pass, this too shall pass. Like, I kept repeating that in my head. And then I would tell myself, there are 24 hours in a day. If I can go through, yeah, even 42 hours, like 42 hours in the grand scheme of my whole life is nothing, right? And for some reason, that logic works for me. That rationale makes me able to withstand certain things that a lot of people can't. And when people say things like, oh, you're so resilient, you're such a survivor for some of the things that I've gone through, I'm like, no, it's a trick, it's a mind trick. I tell myself there's 24 hours in a day. Even if this is the worst, horrific thing that could happen to a person, it's going to only happen for this many hours. And if I live 30 years, 48 or even 72 hours and 40, 30 years is still not that much. So this too shall pass. And so I would just tell myself that. So when I got really sick just a few years ago, when I stopped making YouTube videos and I had one of these things, I kept having to have repeat spinal taps, and then all my nerves died and I was in extreme pain. But I kept having to have these spinal taps, which hurt a lot. And I kept telling myself, this too shall pass, this too shall pass. And so I asked the doctor, like, how long does a spinal tap take? And so when he told me, I just kept telling myself, okay, this too shall pass. And even though I wanted to scream my lungs out when it happened, I was just like, this too shall pass. This is only 2 hours or an hour in 24 hours. I can do this. It's very weird. This is going to be something that's a little bit controversial. And I know you're going to think, like, how could anything that you personally feel be controversial? Well, this is why. When I was younger, I had a friend who I loved dearly, and he confided in me that he felt like he might be gay. And I, of course, was like, I don't care. Like, I'll love you no matter what you are. Like, I don't have to know who you sleep with because none of my business. As long as I'm not there, who cares? Like, I kind of looked at it like that. So, then we started, like, getting older, and, like, people kind of, when people start influencing you and he starts hearing outside influence that's not mine, who's, like, totally accepting, but he's hearing other people's influence. And so he ended up just as kind of denying that side of him. And I really, at first, I was like, man, don't deny who you are, like, live free. And then he said something to me, and I'm not going to get this right, but we were talking, and he was like, some people are meant to go through certain struggles. And after that time, I realized that is so true. As much as I've had a really crappy life in some ways, and I'm not saying all of my life experience is crappy, it's not. There have been lots of good times in my life, but as a child, I experienced some of the worst of the worst. Even as an adult, I've experienced some of the worst of the worst. I've dealt with some of the worst things. And so I thought, I used to say to myself, like, God, why me? Why do I have to keep struggling? Why do I have to keep doing this? And then I realized that it's that same theory, like he said. Some people are supposed to go through certain things, not because it's not going to be difficult, not because it's not devastating, not because it's not hard, but because certain tests, certain struggles are meant for certain people. It's part of their process. It is the road that they decided to take before they were born, like, and I don't know if that's true or not, but I kind of believe in that sometimes, that, like, you kind of planned your life out before you got here and you're kind of living this way for a reason. And I think certain struggles people are supposed to go through, even if the world tells you there are ways to get around dealing with this. I think sometimes these little easy fixes that the world does, they shouldn't do, because you should go through certain things that you are supposed to be going through it for a very important reason, and to not shun all of your rougher experiences too. So as much as you treasure your heart, your happiness, your successes, you should also treasure your failures and things, and even the hard times, because those are tests that you specifically are meant to pass. And I know that sounds all preachy and, like, guru-y, but it's true. Like, I really believe that there are certain things that people are supposed to go through. They are supposed to be the one who discovers a way to live differently. You know, they're supposed to be they're the one who's supposed to discover this thing, and if you take the world's easy out, you're going to miss who you could have become if you had lived through that struggle. So if that sounded dumb, sorry, I have a hair stuck on me. I'm kicking it off. Dang it. Anyway, that's one of the things I think. And again, if you want me to elaborate on any of this, let me know in the comments, and I will elaborate sometime. Now, one of the things that people are going to think that's weird, and again, this is kind of a trigger warning because some people don't believe like I do, but I am a creationist. I know people are like, what? I am. I'm a creationist. I have always believed in God. It's been, it's gotten me, my belief in God has gotten me through. Now, not everybody has to believe like I do, but that is my thing. I've been a Christian since way back. So it is the way that I choose to live my life. But I believe in aliens. And I know you're going to be like, what? You're weird. But I think it's so weird when people are like, oh, aliens couldn't exist. And I'm thinking, why couldn't they exist? Nothing in the Bible, nothing anywhere states that God only made people on earth and then he stopped. He said, I want these stars to be out here. I want these planets to be out here, but I'm not going to put nothing there. I want you all to just stare up there. I think that that's very self-centered of us as a people to believe we're the only ones out there. We are not the only ones out there. I watch this channel on YouTube, and they are not a small YouTuber at all. What is it? I think her name is Kendall Ray or something. Anyway, it's higher, mile higher, or something like that. Sorry, I'm butchering it. I will link it in the description. But they have a really good show, and they kind of talk about things like this. And it's their husband and a wife, and they talk about some of these conspiracies and some of these major events and like thoughts behind certain things. But they've also mentioned aliens a time or two and things like that. And although they may not, I don't know their religious beliefs, but they believe a lot. What I believe is that we are not the only ones out there. I think that there is intelligent life other places. I know that the universe is far too big for us to believe that we are alone and that there's just nothing else out there but us, that we're so amazing that God was like, yep, I perfected perfection. Like there's no way to perfect this. And so he was like, forget it. Everything else can be barren. I don't think it's like that. And I think when we go try to colonize Mars or something, we're going to be shocked to shit when there is already people there. And they're like, what are you doing here? You can't colonize our planet. Like we are, it's already colonized. I think that we will get rude awakenings like that. And I have lots of in-depth thoughts about it. So again, if you want me to elaborate sometime, I will do a separate video about my weird beliefs on space and everything, because I've always been like a stargazer. That's one of my favorite things to do. The nighttime is my favorite time. I love looking at stars and planets, and I'm always so nerdy watching like parallel universe theories and all sorts of things. Like I'm always big into that. I think that's why I write paranormal stuff, and I write urban fantasy and paranormal romance and supernatural thriller and stuff like that. I think I write it because I do believe that there's these other things in life that you cannot explain. And there's no amount of explanation that science can explain it away or anything else. Some things are just unexplainable. There's things that we are not meant to know. That's my thing. But I don't think we're alone. I think there are probably, and I don't think aliens are green or anything. I bet they just exist differently than us, but they might look like us, because the Bible does say that God made people in his image. So what is it for us to think? Why would we think that other people would be green? Like we probably, if they're all probably something like us, but they just work a little different. That's just something I think. One of my biggest pet peeves, and this is the last one, and it's not a pet peeve so much as, and it's not even a conspiracy, it's just a thing that makes me go, like really? I don't understand. I question this because I follow a lot of different people on Instagram, and I love Instagram, and I'm on there like every day, always updating my Instagram. And I see these women who are like butt naked. You have the Kardashians who, like, I'll be honest, Kim used to be my favorite Kardashian. Like, I was there for Kim. Like, Kim and Khloe were like my girls. I felt like we were separated at birth and we were supposed to be best friends. Obviously, I don't still feel that way. well, I do still like Chloe a whole lot, but I really used to believe like these were like my sisters from another mother. Anyway, but I noticed a lot of times I see, and not even just the Kardashians, there's, all sorts of different celebrities and women specifically who pose naked or half naked or they get all these implants and work on their body and get it all sculpted and it's by a doctor, and of course they want to show it off and they got all these pictures, and then you'll have people, and I read their comments, and you'll see people in the comments saying like, why is this cool, like I'm tired of seeing you guys naked, what's going on? And then you have people who are their fans who go hard for them and they're like, no, they're confident. That's confidence. And I have to say, how is that confidence? And I'm not saying it's not confident to be, I don't think that you loving the skin you're in and the body you're in is a bad thing. I think, no way. Like, hey, I'm not somebody who's ever really been too comfortable with my body, but if you can be comfortable with your body, then you do you and take pride in everything that you got. That's my motto. But women have always said, and like definitely in this sort of feminist world we live in now, and I'm not a feminist, but there are lots of this. The world is like of the mind that women should be appreciated for their minds and for their successes and not for their bodies, and um, they shouldn't be treated like pieces of meat. But then you have all these women who are like influencers and idols, and like people look up to them. Young girls look up to these women, and they're naked everywhere. And then people go, "That's confidence." And I'm like, when did that become confident? When did naked and confidence become synonymous? Like why are those two things married together? Like the only way you can be confident is if you're butt naked on Instagram or Twitter or Facebook or wherever else. And I think that's weird. And not to say that those two things can't go hand in hand, but it's like, isn't it better to be appreciated for your successes and for everything else in your mind, and for just other things, your craft, if you're artistic, like you sing, you rap, you model, like you, anything other than the fact that you can post up on a countertop in a bathroom and do this and it's super cute. Like I've never done a picture like that. I think it's weird. And not to say that you can't be confident and proud of yourself for the work you do on your body, but I think you can't say that women shouldn't be objectified and then the way you prove that is to objectify yourself. Like it just seems weird to me. Anyway, it's a thing that makes me go, I'm done. Whew. If you didn't follow that, I'm sorry, but I'm trying to get this video fast. And so like, subscribe, comment, share, smoke signal, telegram, food stamp, whatever, Morse code, I don't know. Share this with other people. Hit the bell so that you see when I upload. I'm going to try to upload every Tuesday and Thursday. But as much as I want everybody to keep the conversation going in the comments, know that you need to keep it classy in the comments. I prefer intellectual conversations. I like intellectual debate. I really do like those things, but I don't like racism and just rude for no reason and people who are just pretty crappy individuals. And I have no problem deleting your comment, blocking you. Like I don't even care. Like I do it so easily. Like I don't even sweat it. So just be real and have a conversation. And if you have questions or comments, please, or you have stories, what are some things that you believe, or some conspiracies that you believe to be true, or some things that are just kind of iffy in your world? Share those with me in the comments. Everybody share, keep the conversation going, but keep it classy, people. And that's it for this video. I will see you in a couple days. Bye, YouTube.